And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. If you guys are new to us here on Amazon, welcome. Boy, do we have a lot going on for you guys starting
Yes, yes,
tomorrow.
yes.
So make sure you guys are following us here on Amazon. You'll see the follow button either here in this corner or down below. Also, you'll see some of the books from our next guest. We have bestselling author Dr. Velma Bagby back on with us today. We're going to talk to her not only about the Catch series. You guys see, I have some of my books right here with me. We're going to be talking about the series, but she also is gearing up for the release of her new podcast as well. We'll talk to her about that. So if you guys are new to the Catch series, you'll find the books there. Make sure you guys do check them out either on paperback or Kindle. We also are simulcasting our broadcast today. So we do welcome those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and on Instagram. On Instagram, I see you guys already coming in. I think it's pronounced Kinty. Hello to you. Chosen Pen Publishing. Hello to you. Jackie. Hey, Jacqueline. Good to be able to see you as well. Angela Anderson Presents. Hello to you over there on IG. Wendy, hello to you. Glad you could catch us as well. The literary ambassador is joining us as well. Dr. Velma,
Woo!
hello to you and welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm trying to get my this thing going. It's pushing on my eye, but I'm doing wonderful. How about you, Cyrus?
I'm doing really good. It's the start of a new month. It's going to be a very busy and quick
Woo-hoo.
July for me, but it's going to be exciting. So I'm excited to be able to talk to you as you're preparing for a lot of great things, including the podcast. Why don't we start there, Dr. Velma? Because
Yes,
for those who may be new to you, they may not know that you used to have a podcast in the past. How
yes.
does it feel to be reviving the podcast and sharing Dr. Velma Speaks?
I enjoyed having those moments and those interpersonal dialogues with folks that were joining in and asking questions. And so it's called Dr. Velma Talks for a reason because it's our opportunity. Let's talk about it. Let's really go into detail about what we said, what I said in my books. And it was right after my very first book that I started the podcast. And from there, that's when I realized I know I needed to write more based on conversations I continue to have with women. So it helped me to do that. And I know that this is something I need to get back to.
Love that. Dr. Velma Talks. So I need to make sure I have the title right to put some respect on that title. Dr. Velma Talks is the, is the title of the podcast. We're going to let you guys know a little bit later. You can stay connected with Dr. Velma. Hello to you, Angela. Good to be able to see you over there on Facebook as well. Angela says, awesome.
Aw,
Congratulations, Dr. Velma, on your new podcast.
thank you.
Wendy says, yes, start there. I'm starting there, Wendy. I'm starting there. I'm starting with the podcast. So for those who don't know, relationships, marriage are definitely big topics that you've been able to discuss. Talk to us about that, Dr. Velma. What it's been like for you to bring those conversations to the world through your books and now through your podcast?
I think it's been wonderful, especially the responses I've gotten from the audience that have loved every one of the books in the series. And that was really the hesitancy I had in the beginning is just switching from nonfiction to fiction and wondering if the audience would follow me. And so far, they have really expressed how much they loved it all. And I'm noticing some of the folks posting. Throughout Facebooks are starting to use some of my buzzwords. I said, well, okay, let me
Mm.
talk more about what I said. And so I think the timing of this is perfect.
Yeah, and you say something that you actually write about in an anthology, Dr. Velma, and that is really trusting your own voice, however that may come out, because you write fiction, you write nonfiction. Your
Yeah.
newest book, of course, is nonfiction. That
Yeah.
is The Catch Book of Fools. I'm going to highlight it for
Hmm.
our audience there in the carousel for Amazon. For those who are not joining us on the Amazon platform, you will find a link there on the platform you're joining us
Hmm.
on that'll bring you over to Amazon, and unless you're joining us on Instagram. So we'll have to put it in our stories for you guys on IG. But hello to you, Robert. Good to be able to see you over there on IG as well. Robert Ham of All Sports Headgear is over there too. So I want to talk about how this all began because I
Yeah.
tell Dr. Bama all the time, no matter how many times she and I've had these conversations over the past couple of years, there will always be people who are just discovering
Yep.
these characters, just discovering Grayson and Veronica. So how did this first book, The Catch No One Wants, how did it come about, Dr. Bama?
I really considered whether or not I was going to write fiction, like I said earlier, because I was comfortable in nonfiction. That was, as an ordained minister, that was what we were taught to expound on what the word says. And so I'm thinking I'm going to write another nonfiction book, but I realized that. after reading a blog post by a friend, an author friends of mine, she was addressing kind of the naysayers in the Christian community who don't warm up to fiction. They prefer nonfiction. And you and I had this conversation about having me discovering who my audience was, and learning that half of my audience are logical thinkers and the other half are emotional, prefer the emotional sides of a book. So how do you combine those two? And you use fiction to weave those stories in a way that it resonates to those who are logical and resonate to those who enjoy the emotional side of a story. So I found that the parables, it's what the person was talking about. Jesus wrote over 50 parables, and that's exactly what he did. He used fiction to weave a story that helped an individual to see what their particular situation was like. And he weaved in that story a way of escape, a way to change, and he left it up to the individual at the end. And that's when I felt, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to weave my stories in a way that, because I've had so many conversations and I know so many stories, it was easy for me to weave these stories in a way that I put truth in there so
Mhm.
people could see themselves, and then also help them to work their way away from that, or to
Yeah.
change just the way Jesus said did in his parable. So I'm excited about the response to it.
And Dr. Vam, I want to add to that as someone who reads a lot of books. There are a lot of times when authors are trying to make points, they use illustrations that the audience can relate to. Hey,
Right.
Jacqueline, good to be able to see you over there on Facebook. And so it makes perfect sense. As you said, the great teacher, Jesus Christ, he did it himself.
Yep.
He was able to break things down to things that people could relate to make it easier for them to understand. And I
Hmm.
think parents do it,
Yeah.
these days as well, use examples for for their kids.
Yes.
I'm just speaking on things I've read because I don't have any children of my own. But I know that we
You
all
got
do.
an announcement to make, Cyrus?
Yeah, but look, but even in my own conversations, sometimes
Yeah.
I will use illustrations, to highlight different points. And so I,
Yeah.
I think it's just a great way of being able to share a great message. Now, let's go back though. Could you have
Uh-huh.
imagined that the world you created with Veronica and her father Grayson would grow the way that it has?
No, there was still some nervousness about the process because I was stepping into a world that it's flooded with all kinds of writers, great authors that are doing well. But I had to come to a place where I realized that they're not representing my voice, that
Mm,
whatever we have to say, it's your voice, and so it's your
right.
voice that an audience is waiting for. So it's not about competition ever. Doesn't matter how flooded the market is, everybody has a voice for somebody. And
Yeah.
so I had to get comfortable with that, and I was just excited. It confirmed and affirmed that I did the right thing when I began hearing from the audience. And even many of the interviewers who interviewed me, a few of the women said, look, where was this book when I needed it? I
Mm,
met all these fish and I didn't realize that that's who they were at the time. So
right.
I'm excited about it. I really am.
Yeah. And again, for those who are just discovering the series, just so you guys know, so we have the Catch No One Once. Again, I have it highlighted in the carousel there. So there's three books that are out that are fiction.
Mhm.
So you guys can start with the Catch No One Once. All of them are standalone, I would say, but they
Mhm.
definitely, I think you'll better understand the characters if you read them in the order. So
Yeah.
again, if you start with this one, the Catch No One Once, and then I'm going to go ahead and highlight the Wrong Catch. I have my copy here and highlight for you guys here on the carousel. And as you guys can see, the Kindle edition is only $2.99 for The Wrong Catch. So there
Mhm.
is it. That is the second book in the series. And then the third book in the series is probably one of my favorites because there we have Grayson talking with us guys. In The Wrong
Yes.
Catch, she'll tear down the house. Now,
Yes.
I wanted to bring up the three novels for a second, Dr. Velma, because
Mhm.
what I love for those who don't know about Dr. Velma's writings, these are not books bashing men. These are
No.
not books bashing women. These are books that share characters to help us, men and women, better look at ourselves, be honest
Mhm.
with ourselves, and be able to think about the decisions that we make. So I want to ask you about that, Dr. Bell. Hey, Dr. Norma, good to see you over there on IG. Hello to you, Camilla, I think it is, over on IG. Appreciate you joining us as well. How important was that for you, Dr. Bellman, to make sure that this was not just about all guys are bad or all women are, are bad? It really is about the individual and making the right decisions based on what
Yeah.
you see and experience.
Well, there was a time when that was a fact. People felt like it was always the man that was the issue. But over time, having conversation with women, ministering to women, having dialogue with women over the past, it's close to 40 years now. I used to say 30, but it's close to 40 years now.
Mhm.
The problem relies in the mind of the woman. Period. It's not that man's fault. And it is yours because there are things that you need to have in place in terms of what you're expecting, what you're looking for, and also putting yourself in a position that you know what you're doing. And I refer to it as high school dating, leaving that high school method of dating in high school. We are grown people, and yet we continue to use that same, oh, does he love me? Does he love me not? Is he looking? That's high school. We really need to change the strategy and go back to what God teaches in his word, and that is to date for marriage. Doesn't use the word date, but we use it because that's what people recognize. But it really was all about meeting the person you want to marry. So date for marriage, date with intent, whatever phrase we want to use, the goal is marriage. And so that's a different strategy than this high school model of dating that's just over a couple of 100 years old. We've just practiced it over time and gotten used to using it, and there's no commitment built in it.
Yeah.
When you date for marriage, you go into that very first conversation knowing that this is your goal, and you want to find out if this is even worth your going further than that very first date by asking the right questions.
Such a great point. Such a great point. Hello to you, Stacy. Hello to you, another media personality there. Stacy, good to be to see you. For those who are just tuning in,
Mhm.
welcome. We're already halfway through our conversation with Dr. Velma Bagby
Oh my.
today, discussing her Catch series of books, her best-selling series that began with this book, The Catch No One Wants, and has now exploded into three novels. And then she has a nonfiction book, The Catch Book of Fools. We're going to talk more about that. But as you were talking, Dr. Bim, I thought about something. One of the characters in the book, The Cat She'll Tear Down the House. I'm going to highlight it
Yeah.
again for those joining us on Amazon because there's the couple, Chase and Vera.
Uh-huh.
And I love the fact that Chase says something that is so important for men and women, I believe.
Hmm.
Well, there's two things,
Yeah.
and depending on how we this conversation flows, I may get into both of them. But one of the big things that he said, that when he talked about the red flags that he saw
Hmm.
and ignored, as a lot of us
Yes,
men do, and a lot of women do as well.
that's
He
right.
he then says this though to the guys that are there, and I think this is the big thing: to don't be afraid to ask the tough questions,
Yes.
because keeping clear boundaries makes them aware of where you stand, as well as they won't dare cross the line. I want to talk about that because
Yes.
a lot of people are not good at clarity. We try to talk around what we want, what we expect, how we feel. My family says I'm a little too clarifying. That I'm borderline blunt, aka rude sometimes. But I try to be very clear with people so that there's not any ambiguity as to how I think and feel about something. Right?
Right.
We
Right.
have the example of Chase in the book, who was not very good, as some men, again, as women are not either, at setting boundaries,
Right.
watching the red flags and say, "Oh, that's just who they are," or "That's not really anything to worry about." How important is that, Dr. Bama, when it comes to relationships, to make sure that we are very clear when it comes to those boundaries?
First of all, adjust your glasses. If
Mm.
it's red, it means stop. If we see a red stop sign, what is that? That's a caution for us to come. If it's up ahead, we know to slow down. We're getting ready to stop. Red means just that: retreat, extremely dangerous. And just like what you said, we ignore the flags
Yeah,
and make excuses for them. And women do it more than men, by the way. So I know men do it at times, but women do it. Oh, he's just like that. Oh, he'll get better. He's not like that all the time. Come on. Red is red. If he's showing those signs that can reflect the possibility of this person being very toxic, you need to pay attention to that. And sometimes you see those signs very early on and you just ignore them. So I say that I've heard those excuses over the years. I
right,
remember writing about in my other book about a friend of mine who loves animals. And I remember having a conversation about why the dog was acting the way it was. So this is what she said. Oh, he's just like that because of the way he was treated. They really mistreated this dog. And so now his behavior is like that because. Now, can you imagine if that dog was a human being
right.
and it's biting you? it's hitting you. It's barking at you all the time. And you use that excuse as, oh, that's because of their environment. That's because of the way they were raised. That's not your job. So it's
Yeah.
important for you to recognize it as, and I said, we're not animal rescues either in
Yeah.
a dating relationship, especially if you're looking for the person to marry. So we need to stop these kind of things, high school dating, and really use a better strategy. And the blue book has already been written. We just have to go back to it and find out what God says.
Yeah. Such a great thing. And I think that is the thing. Hey, knowledge, good to be able to see you over there on the IG side. That is the thing. And you know, these conversations are not easy, Dr. Bama. And look, I get it. People don't
Yeah,
like to hurt people's feelings. People don't want to feel like they're being judgmental. And I get all of that. But one thing I've read, one thing I tell people is that fiction has a way of showing the truth of the world sometimes.
absolutely.
And if anyone has read any of these books from Dr. Bama in the Catch series of novels, you probably know someone who's like that, or you will see yourself. Now,
Yeah,
Dr. Bama, you talked about this work you've been doing for 40 years. We should let our audience know this year you also celebrated another milestone, that being 50 years of marriage. You
yes.
shared your story in the book we have here on Amazon for only 99 cents. You guys can get Dr. Bama's own story, My
Yep.
70s Love Story. I have it highlighted for you guys on Amazon. For those who are not joining us on Amazon, click the link. It'll bring you over to Amazon. Talk to us about that reflection, Dr. Bama, how you've been, not saying everything has been easy, but that you've been able to show people what is possible when you're willing to do the work.
Yeah, many times my husband and I have gotten questions from people who wanted to know, how did you guys make it work? What's one word you can tell me that will help me in the future? It's not one word. It's a lot of different words.
Yeah.
It's a practice, it's a model, it's
Mm,
a strategy. And
yeah.
unless you know how to do that, and that's why these books were so important for me to write, because really by the time you get before a minister for your pre-marriage counseling, that's too late. Those hard questions need to be asked early on now,
Mm,
really, for your safety and security. Because look, it's scary out there in those streets.
yeah.
People are not who they say they are, and so you have to
Yeah.
be very careful. And many of those stories reflect that. Like you said, one of my favorites out of the series is that male book, in response to my male readers, write about the wrong women to date. And that's
Right.
why that book was so important, because women can put on a facade that's not who they really are, but so can men. But
Yeah.
women used to be better at this process, and we have adopted the same process that men have over time. We look at conditions, we look at what's on the outside. We don't examine the characteristics of the heart, which is where you want to go. Examine who this person really is. Even God says, look, show me the heart.
Yeah.
Remember, we talked about all the guys waiting in the room for the prophet to bless someone, and he finally said, God said, none of these sons you brought before me looking like they should be on GQ magazine. He said, do you have any more?
Hmm.
He said, I have one more. And guess where David was? Out in the field with the sheep, smelling like
Yeah.
sheep. Didn't look like he was would get on the cover of GQ, but that was the one that God anointed as king. And that's what we do. We
Yeah.
judge by the exterior instead of looking at the heart of the person, which is what God says. And that's where we made our biggest mistake.
Hmm. Dr. Bama is one of my favorite scriptures. First Samuel 16:7.
Oh, look, you
16:7.
got it.
And let me tell you something. Being a short guy, one that's easily ignored, that's the scripture I always think about. You know what? It's not about what man sees; it's about what God
Look,
sees. You know what
hey,
I'm saying?
I have a story about a woman who says she ignored the man that she thought she wanted and went with the one that God said she should go with. And he was a little shorter than her. She
Yeah.
was telling her testimony, and she said, I married him because God said that was the one for me. She
Yeah.
said, that man gets taller and taller in my eyes every
Mm,
day by
yeah.
the way he treats me. So
Yeah.
that's why we have to get away from these preconceived ideas of what he should look. Look, before I married my husband, on my list, I said, God, send me a man that's 6 feet, and please let him have bold legs. Well, at 16, when I wrote out that list for my husband, nobody told me those were conditions, because God will let you know he has a better plan. And what he sent me was a man that was 5'9" with slewed feet. And
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm praying, I open up my eyes and look down. God, you got a sense of humor. This is slewed feet.
Hey, it is so true. Stacy says condition. That's right. Hello to you, Betty. Good to be able to see you over there on the IG side. And I want to say again, for those joining us on Amazon, take advantage of the opportunity to be able to get the books you guys see here. So that is the way for me to get the books either on paperback or the Kindle edition. So make sure you guys take advantage of that. For those who are not joining us on Amazon, again, make sure you guys do click the link that's with this broadcast. That'll bring you guys over to Amazon as well. Last thing I'm going to talk to you about, Dr. Velma, before we wrap up here,
Uh-huh.
is the nonfiction book in the series. Hey,
Yes.
Ricardo, good to be able to see you as well. Hello to you, Manswell. Manswell says hello to you as well, Dr. Velma.
Yay.
So let's talk about the Catch Book of Fools. So that is the nonfiction book in the series right now,
Yeah.
and that is the newest bestseller in the series as well. I'm going to go ahead and
hmm
highlight it in the carousel on the Amazon side. So talk to us about how the Book of Fools came about, Dr. Velma.
To be honest with you, Cyrus, I always said to you that I try to pray my way through for God to give me direction as to what He wants me to write next, what topic. And I felt this urging to release a book on April Fool's Day. I all throughout the books we talk about fools and foolish behaviors, the
Right.
kind of characteristics you are things you need to avoid when you're examining a person. Pay attention to them as red flags. And so I said, well, somebody may want to know, what does God's word say about it, because there's over 200 references to fools and foolish behavior in the Bible. And I said, if God gave us that much information about a fool and foolishness, we need to pay attention. Either He doesn't want us to be a fool, He doesn't want us to marry a fool,
Mm-hmm.
or act a fool. And so, just like you and I talked about, these scriptures will apply to business relationships,
Yeah.
friendships, not just marriage. These are warnings, those red flags we talk about in the book. And so it gives people a glimpse, because I give a little highlight of each of those scriptures so that you can make note of what it's saying to you. You can look it up and refer to it, but it's serious. You can look
Right.
at these and you're like, oh my gosh, I met somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it helps you to recognize them as red flags.
So it's a great way again, and I love the one thing I love about this book, the Book of Fools, is that it also allows you to be able to kind of meditate on the scripture yourself and ask yourself the question, if you're being this person, if you know this person, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah, yeah,
If you met someone like that, and I think again it goes back to what we mentioned earlier, that personal connection we're able to make again
yeah,
with this as well. So again,
absolutely.
Dr. Velma has a lot going on. As I mentioned, she has the 4 books in the Catch series that are out right now. You guys can be able to get here on Amazon, either in paperback or Kindle. She has a new podcast coming up that's getting ready to launch. So, Dr. Velma, how can they stay connected with everything that you're doing?
Well, you can go to my website or any of the social media apps. You can connect with me there as Dr. Velma Bagby, author on Instagram, and the other sites it would be Dr. Velma or Dr. Velma Bagby. My
Mhm.
website is drvelmabagby.com.
All right, Dr. Velma, congratulations
Thank
again.
you.
We're going to be having other conversations for sure, but excited about all the great things happening for you. Looking forward to our next chat together.
Thank you, Cyrus. It was a pleasure.
All right, and we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, I'm Cyrus Webb saying thank you so much for being with us. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.